Hi people, me again of course as always, Moino Ravenberg, and as usual. Yeah, this is obviously based on a header, a non-occult related subject that I simply wanted to remind people of because it's something that I think at least a couple of people or a few people are aware of, or the rest might be aware of it, but it simply never dawned on them. Just like the header says, people don't change. Okay, and of course that's a generalization because it is possible to change, but a considerable, to say the least, amount of effort is needed to do just that, change. The general consensus, as the saying goes, is that a leopard does not change its spots, neither a zebra its stripes. Obviously being a metaphor for the fact that people don't change. Generally speaking, people as a whole, conditions and or circumstances within the context of this subject matter, they don't change. Okay, and as a result, you simply, or as food for thought, not as a result, as food for thought, you simply need to keep it in mind, and it will do you substantial favors. Just making a quick mental note of it, because people make the mistake, for example, of interacting with others. I'm not referring to myself. This is a very general subject matter and or topic that simply came to mind the way I'm used to recording. And I've seen it over the course of my life where, for example, people got upset that, hey, I, for example, made an agreement with someone. I had like an appointment at a certain restaurant with a friend of mine or similar, yada yada yada, and then the friend doesn't show up and you really counted on that friend, and then you think to yourself, I thought I could trust the guy, I thought I could rely on the guy, and then it's all for nothing essentially, when the person in question knew very well what his or her friend was like, that the friend has a tendency to be unreliable and impunctual and so on and so forth. So again, simply to keep this in mind, people generally speaking do not change. In order to change, a substantial, most of the time, a tremendous amount of effort even is required and or needed to do just that, to change. And very few people have the willpower, the backbone, the strength of will overall to change. Okay? Of course, at the end of the day, it's their problem, and it's not really a big deal because it applies to most people in this world. When it's also a reference to, or the other way around, the saying old habits die hard is also a reference, whether it be directly or indirectly, to this topic. The same way that, for example, someone that quits smoking and then all of a sudden, for example, the person hasn't smoked in 20 years. The person smoked 20 years ago, the person went into rehabilitation, la 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 la, and then the person is smoke free essentially. The person doesn't smoke. I think most people are aware of this. In case you weren't aware of it, take it from me. All it takes is for someone, it doesn't matter whether 50 years go by, all it takes for someone is to smoke one bit, just once, okay? And the person will automatically fall back into their old habits from like 50 years ago or 20 years ago. If the person smoked like packets a day, then it's very easy for the person to fall into that habit. The simple occult explanation or the spiritual explanation behind this is because the person's astral body remembers what it's like. It remembers the bad habit of smoking, okay, and for whatever reason, how good it felt or how comforting it felt, you name it. And regardless of the reason, and despite so much time having passed, having made so many gains, the person essentially is back to square one, only in a manner of speaking, in terms of being semi-addicted again, if you will. And within that same context, people regarding personality, regarding the way they naturally are, obviously having come to pass based on the way that someone is configured, the spiritual blueprint of someone's personality. I've already discussed that in the past. How someone is put together, if you will, similar to a dish being the result of a recipe, again in its turn being compiled of different things or having come from such. In that same manner or fashion, Someone's personality is the result of just that, and generally speaking, people do not change. Okay, it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter to what extent it happens. Even if a shell-shocking event does just that, it shocks someone to the core. Only in exceptional cases or in rare instances will someone change. It Even if they do change, usually the change is only temporary, and sooner or later they simply fall back into their old ways. Again, it's just man is a creature of habit, to put it that way. And within that same context, the census is who wants to change? Yeah, everyone wants it. Who wants change? Yay, everyone wants change. Who wants to change? And then, like, no one wants to change. And more often than not, if, for example, you find yourself disappointed by people that that you knew you were friends with them or lovers or whatever, okay, whatever you were with them, whatever your relationship or bond with them was, and you simply, and for whatever reason you counted on them and then you get disappointed, then, I mean, don't be, if it's a reference to what I'm discussing, because you have no one else but yourself to blame. You know what the person was like in question, and yet you're going to be upset, I'm assuming, or similar, over the person simply acting like what they are, okay, or how they are configured. It's not something you should be upset over. It's, again, simple examples I can give other than what I've already brought up. Are you going to get upset if, for example, you have a female friend and the girl or woman in question has a history of petty theft and similar misdemeanors, and then you're friends with the person, and then this woman, she steals from you, for example. You found out that she, like, pickpocketed your wallet or something like that. Would you get upset? I mean, yeah, you would get upset naturally, but from a neutral perspective, you don't really, you should, in a manner of speaking, strictly blame yourself. There is nothing to get upset over. Getting upset over what? The person is acting according to her nature. So, there is nothing to get upset over. You see what I mean? As in, the person is acting in keeping with their nature. So from a neutral, at least philosophical perspective, just overall, and by the by, there is nothing to get upset over. The person is acting like what they are. Okay, a petty thief. If you, for example, see a snake on the road, and then you pick up the snake is going to bite you. 90% chance that the snake is going to bite you. Just crudely put, in 90%. In any case, overwhelming majority of people would say that, yeah, there is a very high probability that snake will bite you. Does that mean that the snake has like a grand plan or a highly elaborate plan, intellectually concocted, that the snake is going to poison you or envenomate you or anything like that? No. The snake is literally just doing what comes to it naturally. A snake bites. What else are snakes supposed to do, for example? I mean, not picking up a snake and then expecting the snake to not bite you is quite abnormal, to say the least. Only in highly exceptional cases will that be the case. Again, the snake is doing what's in its nature. Within that same context, applicable to people, you can't be upset, in a manner of speaking, when someone simply acts like what they are. They act according to who they are and what they are. I mean, you go into a bad neighborhood, for example, and you've got a lot of when looking at you, you can tell that you, for example, have a lot of money on you or similar, and that makes it so that you stand out. When you get robbed, I mean, let's be honest, are you seriously going to complain and say, oh God, I got robbed and blah, 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 blah? Of course, yeah, from a neutral perspective, of course, it's a natural response. You're going to do so. But it should be anything but a surprise. Any neutral bystander will say, what did you expect? You're in a bad neighborhood. And you've got money written all over you. What did you expect was going to happen? That doesn't mean that the so-called people in that neighborhood have like some kind of highly elaborate vendetta against you. They personally hate you and they just wanted to stick it to you. No. These people, so to speak, are simply doing what is in their nature. They do what comes to them naturally, similar to breathing, although breathing might be a slightly extreme example, but you get the gist of it. They do what comes to them. They're what's in their nature, and their nature is like a habit. Honestly, it's something that they do by impulse, in a manner of speaking. They don't really have to think all too much about it. A minimal amount of at best minimal amount of thought process go into what they do, and it just goes on and on and on. And that's why you're seeing the world, for the most part, for all if not the most part, stay the way it is. Only in highly exceptional situations and or cases will you see something change, and it's a long-term change. For the most part, everywhere in the world, every country, every establishment, every this, every that, it, generally speaking, within the context of this subject, stays the same. Because, the inhabitants of these countries, these locations, the employees of these businesses, the owners, the shareholders, you name it, okay? Every aspect of society, of human society, and even animal society, honestly, just plain society globally, they act according to their nature. They do what comes to them naturally, whether it's for better or worse or anything else in between. So yeah, if you weren't aware of it, then you should be aware of it, and if you are already aware of it, then it's simply food for thought. I mean, these are examples taken from my own personal life. Not examples, I mean, this notion is taken from my own personal life in terms of what I've experienced, etc. Not with customers or anything like that. People that I have met face to face and whatnot, I mean, in the flesh and related. Stuff like that. And again, of course, based on the negative examples I've shared with people in the past, the way that more than a few of the characters I have associated myself with, not that they were super negative, I didn't experience any negativity from them, or at best it was minimal, or yeah, the negativity was minimal. Okay, from a neutral perspective, I never got upset over, for example, these characters doing something that I disapproved of, because I know that these guys are acting according to their nature. These guys are literally just doing what is inside them. They're doing what's in their plain nature. They don't have some kind of elaborate plan to attack me or to do this or do that. No, they literally just see me, and they have a certain perception of me, and combined with their nature, then what they did is the result and their consequence. So yeah, I mean, come on, you can't get upset, so to speak, at an ex-con all of a sudden stealing, as in, oh my god, Pikachu face. No, the guy's an ex-con. I mean, no offense to ex-cons, but really, I mean, is it anything but a surprise? It's like, how many examples do I need to give? It's like water being wet. Again, another extreme example, but you know what I mean. No, they simply act according to their nature. Within that context, or within the confinement or the confines of this subject matter, again, the general consensus is, and you need to keep that in mind, people don't change. Bye.